fix this? What are you doing Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of this week?
Man, well, number one, you still have to attack the top of the market. And I know he's labeled as this value guy, bargain shopper. None of that plays with Aaron Rodgers here for the next year, 2, 3, whatever it's going to be. Realistically, if you look at the age of the quarterback and the injuries and, let's call it 2, and maybe we're even gifting ourselves an extra year there. Who knows? You're not looking for bargains. This isn't a team like what the Giants did today was actually, in my opinion, decent value. I thought Runyon got a nice deal for an average guard, but I look at Illuminor and I'm like, damn, 2 years, 14 mil. Like he's a solid tackle. Similar to the Jets getting Morgan Moses, but that was in June a couple of years ago. I think when you look at it, this is a team that needs to be doing both, to be fair. They need to raise the floor of this offensive line, which is exactly what the Giants did today. Very easy to look at. The Giants raised the floor of their offensive line. I don't think the Giants overnight became a great offensive line, but I think they had glaring holes, and they're trying to raise a floor to make sure they don't go through a disaster again. And when you look at the Jets with Rodgers, and they have Garrett Wilson, and they have Breece Hall, and they do have ABT and Tittman, it felt like the goal should have been to raise the floor of the offensive line. If the Jets came in today, right, and didn't sign Robert Hunt, who got $100 million, or I think that's not anything to be mad about. But if they came into today, and they could still, to be fair, they could still do this. Say, okay, this is the easiest way to do it, to paint the picture. If they go get Tyron Smith and Zeitler, right? Which, by the way, they're not going to be crazy deals because the term of those deals, because of those guys' ages, isn't going to be crazy. If you go get Zeitler and Tyron Smith, and you're saying, okay, Tyron's going to play left tackle. We plan on having Tittman play center. Zeitler's going to be one of our guards. ABT is going to be the right tackle or guard, depending what happens in the draft. You're okay. You're okay. I don't have any confidence in them to get both of those guys. And the rest of the market got really, really thin. But that would be raising the floor of the offensive line. Even with Tyron is going to miss a few games. Zeitler's not in his prime anymore. He's just a solid, rock-solid guard. But you're raising the floor of the offensive line. The ceiling swing would have been, okay, we went out and paid on Onwenu and Hunt, and yeah, we invested $150 million into the offensive line, but we want a great offensive line for Aaron Rodgers because we want to go run the ball and win a Super Bowl. And I mean, listen, that makes sense too, but they weren't going to do that. But they didn't do any of it. And now you're at the point where I don't really see a great ceiling for this offensive line, but the floor potential is still there, and that they have to go do. I would trade for one of the veteran receivers, whether it's Sutton, Deontay Johnson, and I would try to raise the floor of this offensive line. And then you're going into the draft, and you're probably going to draft the best offensive lineman available. And then Carter Warren is a depth piece, which he should be a depth piece, right? Schweitzer is a depth piece. We should be that. So there's still moves to make, but it does get concerning because guess what? All of the teams that missed out on the day one offensive lineman are still in that offensive line market that you have to compete with. And right now, we just don't know if Joe Douglas has the juice to be a closer. We haven't seen that yet, to go get that guy. Like, it's the almost Jets joke that we constantly run, but it's in reality, this is a time where it's not even funny. It's to the point where it's legitimately concerning for a year where the Jets are supposed to be all in, and this feels like absolute half measures.
Yeah, it's like, and also, what's the surprise move that we're not talking about?
Will there be one?
What is that decision to fill a hole that we're not expecting? That was the Brandon Marshall move in 2015. That was the Jets back further in the day. You were tweeting about this earlier, getting Damian Woody and Calvin Pace in one offseason.
The Cromartie trade.
Getting Cromartie on top of Revis. Getting Santonio Holmes at the time when it really worked out. Getting Braylon Edwards. What is that player? What is that? When we saw, I don't think they're going to do this, but there's always surprise players who become available. T. Higgins might be on the trade market now. Are they going to surprise us and get T. Higgins? Are you going to surprise us and get Ayuk? Are you going to surprise us and get Keenan Allen or Terry McLaurin, who may be on the market and no one's expecting it? I don't know. The point is that that's his job to find the move that we're not talking about that is going to lift the floor on this team. And when the Jets have had success in their history, they've done things like that. The last time they had a good offense, it was because they got Brandon Marshall, Eric Decker, and Chris Ivory, all veteran additions that made a difference. And when they were good in the Rex years, all the veteran additions that we discuss all the time made a huge impact. You have to complement the draft with the pro moves, and their pro personnel scouting has been so bad. And it doesn't mean that you get to sit it out. So look, we're recording, it's now like a little after 9. By the time this hits your feeds at like 6 a.m. Eastern time, a move or two may happen. And look, we'll react to it as it comes, throughout the day, Tuesday and Wednesday, as we get into the back half of the week and stuff that's always on the feed then. But our job is to express how we feel as Jet fans in the moment. Also, take a pulse of the sentiment of what we're seeing on the Discord, on Twitter.
Everybody's pissed.
Patreon. Everyone's pissed, and everyone has a right to be pissed because this messaging and this approach plays when you're 10-18, and you could say, look, it's been like 28 games, and like, let's relax. Let's give this guy some time. Maybe 50 games, not 63 games, not 83 games, not going into year 4 of Saleh when he just got, eviscerated in a leak article. The reputation and the Q rating among Jet fans for the GM and the head coach are as low as they've been since late Maccagnan and late Gase. And what sucks is that I do think, and trust me, I do think that Joe Douglas to date has been a better GM than Mike Maccagnan, even though I think Maccagnan actually has a better record as of now. I just think it's alarming how close they are, like really alarming. And I do think Robert Saleh is a better coach than Adam Gase. It's alarming how close the output and the popularity is starting to get. There is no Jet fan you can talk to who feels great about Robert Saleh. There are fewer and fewer Jet fans around who feel great about Joe Douglas anymore. And that's a dangerous, toxic spot to go in. Now, vibes can turn quick. We've seen it. You get a couple things to break right. You get some clips of Rodgers out there. It's
but you can't rely on Rodgers to fix everything. This is the issue.
That's the plan. The plan, and someone said this in the Discord, like, this is right. Like, the plan for this year is Rodgers and pray. The internal organizational narrative from top to bottom, from Woody to Woody's family down to the janitor, is that we would have won 10 games with Aaron Rodgers last year. We will win 10 games with him next year. It does not matter.
With new uniforms.
With new uniforms. And like, we will be on primetime 5 times, and the people are going to show up no matter what. We're going to raise the season ticket prices, and people will be here because they're so goddamn starved for a winner and to watch a great quarterback. Like, it doesn't matter. And like, he'll figure it out. And that is a hell of a lot to put on a 41-year-old quarterback who's in a conference with a guy who might end up being the greatest quarterback ever in Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow coming off an injury, Herbert playing with Harbaugh this year, Josh Allen, who's an alien running around, Tua, who puts up ridiculous stats whenever he's healthy, and now that he has McDaniel coaching him. I'm forgetting 3 other examples of how difficult this conference is going to be next year, but it's tough, man. It's a lot to ask of a guy at that age coming off a major injury, and I still think he will be really good. But make his life easier, for God's sakes. Don't ask him.
What is he thinking right now?
Like, he's got to like be the offensive coordinator and the GM and the quarterback and the offensive line coach. Like, God, make it a little easier on the guy.
Right. He's got to be a little nervous right now because he is historically a guy that doesn't like betting on key roles for rookies. And the Jets clearly are going to be doing that with the 10th overall pick, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I think the 3rd round pick is going to have a role on this team. But, traditionally, and I would count Carter Warren in the rookie conversation, right? If Carter Warren has to start, it's his first season having to play a lot of NFL football. Rodgers is not a guy that likes going in, putting responsibilities on guys like that. We saw it at the end in Green Bay there. So, yeah, I would love to know the mindset there. I've said for a while, and I said this a lot towards the end of the year on postgame. My fear was always that they blamed this year on bad luck with his Achilles injury. And once again, this is always the Jets' problem in a Badlands constant point of emphasis. You can evaluate things in a vacuum. That was bad luck that Rodgers got hurt. The Jets pressing no correct buttons after that is not bad luck. It's ineptitude. So now they are once again trending in that path. There's time to get this right and make moves, and this podcast will be a lot different if they make those moves, but it's obviously concerning. And you lose a lot of faith of the fan base when you're trying to prove to them we are a team that's going to draft, develop, and reward. And the best example of that in Bryce Huff is gone with nothing to show for. So there's a lot of internal issues right now. There's a lack of faith in the GM. There's a lack of faith in the coaching staff. I mean, Woody is not going to be free of criticism from this because he oversees all of these guys that the fans are having significant problems with right now. And if the Jets don't make the proper moves, Aaron Rodgers is a guy that, rightfully so, is going to publicly say what he feels when things go wrong. And he's a guy that before free agency started has said, we need a couple offensive linemen, we need another receiver. And as we record this podcast right now, they haven't gotten any of those things. So, and the market is clearing up rapidly. So it's,
I mean, even since we started recording an hour ago, like 7 more guys have came off the market.
Oh, yeah. Brissett. There's been so many. So, I mean, we have to talk about Bakhtiari, right?
It's going to happen
before this podcast ends. And there's nothing wrong with, right? The Jets are in a unique advantage with Bakhtiari because him and Rodgers are best of friends. And there's nothing wrong. Let me make this clear. There's nothing wrong with taking a flyer on Bakhtiari. There is everything wrong with acting like Bakhtiari's the move. Right? Like the big move. He's our left tackle for 17 games. Bakhtiari is a guy that if healthy and when healthy, even though he's played like basically 1 season of the last 3 combined, not even, he is one of the best technicians of this era. One of the best, maybe the best technician of this era that when healthy, you don't worry about the decline as much with him. Like he's not physically he doesn't need to rely on speed and size. But once again, that is a complete flyer move of, hey, we got Bakhtiari, let's get him to camp and see what he's got. It's not the move where, hey, we needed 3 offensive linemen. We got Bakhtiari and, oh man, Aaron Brewer's even gone. I can't even think of an example right now. Like Jonah Williams and Bakhtiari, I would have serious concerns if that was the 2 moves they made. I would be really, really nervous personally. What are your thoughts on the whole Bakhtiari situation?
I mean, it just feels like it's going to happen probably.
Which is once again fine.
It might not happen right now. I think it feels like an after the NFL draft move. He was also cut by the Packers for a failed physical. Like, so there's real questions about
broken down.
Exactly. Like he's like, this is like when we were talking about Ben Jones. Like he's like a retire or maybe play 1 year guy. And it just feels like it could be the Dwayne Brown situation again, where they sign him like in May. He doesn't practice all summer. He barely plays in the preseason. And there he is week 1 as the starting left tackle. And you saw what happened when they tried that with Dwayne Brown. Like, again, on a low-cost deal, not counting on him for 17 games.
I don't know if you count on him for half the season.
It just feels like it will play out like Cobb. Like when they got Cobb, we're like, he's just replacing Berrios. He's going to be like the 5th, 6th receiver. Though. Yeah, like, and then all of a sudden he's the number 3 receiver, and he's like,
right. It's like, yeah, you're right. This is the fear of it all.
It just feels like if Bakhtiari's there, like he's coming to start, and he'll be the starting left tackle until he gets hurt or until something else happens. And that's my concern. Where that's what they're going to sell. It's like, well, we fixed left tackle with him. We'll start a rookie at right tackle. And like that's kind of it. And maybe we'll get whatever guard is left. Maybe that ends up being Zeitler. I mean, I tweeted this, like, as of this moment of recording, it seems like the path that I could see them taking is we're going to sign Zeitler. Him and ABT will be the guards. Tippmann will be the center. Bakhtiari is going to be the left tackle. Fuaga is going to be the right tackle. And Carter Warren will be there to back up Bakhtiari with Wes as the backup. And I guess if you're an optimist, you could be like, yeah, if Bakhtiari's healthy and you got like, all right, like it just
Ryan Clady.
Yeah, the Ryan, it's a great example. And it's like, man, the risk there it's scary. And it's also just like, if they're going to make, it's just so obvious. I kind of hate when they make like the most obvious moves imaginable, like him and MDS and like, can we like put a little thought into this? Like where we're not like signing the people that we're all joking about them signing. I mean, at least the Dolphins prevented them from signing Brewer. Actually, I think Brewer hated Keith Carter like everyone else, so he was never going to.
Probably. But, we didn't think of that part.
Like, literally, someone sent me an article of like quotes of him being like, "I hate that dude."
We didn't think of that problem. Oh man, this has been a dreadful podcast in terms of the vibes. It's actually it's a really big bummer. It's
Or
in my opinion, the only way you sell the Bakhtiari signing is if you legitimately paired it with Tyron Smith, and I don't think because literally they might combine for one season at left tackle, and I'm not kidding. But it's hard to see. It's hard to see them actually being able to pull that off. I mean, they have a GM that can't close on. He's not creative and he can't close, and they have bad coaching, so it's hard to have faith in the young offensive linemen that are going to need to step up on this team. I mean, the fun, like you can't even say Tippmann is a great example because he was pretty solid last year. That Tippmann was exactly what he was coming into the NFL. That's who he was. A lot of my concerns with Tippmann were not really the player he was. It was a lot of it was the 2 shoulder surgeries and him staying healthy.
Yeah.
So
I mean, and again, I love AVT, but like,
right.
Is it fair to assume he's going to play 17 games next year? I don't know. Like, I hope, but man, like you have to like it's just risky. And it just feels like of all years to like overdo it, this was the year to overpay actually. And maybe they will still overpay to like fill some of these holes, but I don't care that the guard market.
But don't overpay if they go give Jonah Williams $60 million tomorrow, I'm not sitting on this podcast like, well, you know what? I take everything back we said yesterday.
Yep.
This is they don't even have the right evaluation process going on right now, it feels like. And I can't emphasize this enough. There is time. There are players out there, but it's really mind-blowing. You know what it is, honestly, why we're on here having this conversation and frustrated and the Discord was going nuclear today. I think it's just as much as the inactivity, the entire beat, and I'm not blaming them individually. I know most of them personally. Like I like them all personally. It's just they're just doing their jobs. The entire beat sending out the warning signal. Yep. Which is the Jets, they knew and they were right. And the Jets just being like, well, you know, it's not really what we do. What do you mean? You don't bargain shop. It's insane to me. It's insane to me. It's like you get Rodgers, right? You get Rodgers and then you're going to dollar store shop for the right pieces around him. That's not.
It makes it feel like Rodgers was a marketing ploy more than a football play when you don't build around him the right way.
That hit like 1,000 needles because I hate how possible it is.
Yeah. It's like we got him. We're going to sell some tickets. We're going to get some primetime games. We're going to say the Jets are back, but we're not going to do the real work to really set him up to succeed. And look,
let's be real. Let's be real for a moment. And this probably isn't the note people want to close on, but I don't know. I just have to ask it as I like to consider myself a pretty practical person, and this is somebody that podcasts weekly about the Jets and the Mets, so it takes a lot of fibers in my body to still be very practical and calm and mild-mannered. If this all fails with Rodgers, and when I say fails, they don't ever make the playoffs, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter because he doesn't have to sell the team. He can do whatever he wants, but it's pretty hard for Woody Johnson PR-wise to survive this. I mean, you haven't made the playoffs in 14 years. You made the move for Rodgers, and yes, you had bad luck in the first year, but the second year, you're trending towards not even trying to put the right team around him. If it fails, like you won't have that's bad luck. Jets are cursed. Like you won't have that. This fan base will be like, screw you guys. We called this before the year, and it transpired how it's really dangerous is what I'll say. I'm not going to say that it'll be over for anyone or there's no coming back because when you own something, you own it. You don't have to do whatever the public says, but fan approval matters in this business, and the Jets are in a dangerous place, and they got a couple of days here to figure it out real quick.
Figure it out. I'll end on the note that part of this will end up on YouTube, and you can see Connor's amazing hat, which we've sold.
Sound like
89. Actually, I'm sorry, 91 of the 100. So 9 left, and then we'll get to the quarter zips. More content coming throughout the week. Details on the draft party coming by the end of the week. It's getting there. We're moving now. Also, it looks like the Browns are going to sign Jameis Winston, which means Joe Flacco, QB2, still alive. With Brissett at the Patriots because we can't escape. I'm trying to end on some kind of different note here, but stay with us. The Jets will sign someone at some point this week, and Connor and I will be back.
They got Isaiah Oliver.
I got to say, Oliver. I mean, again, the Jared Davis signing of the year. Great to have him on the board to replace Bryce Hall, a critical spot in the Jets ecosystem at the moment. And we got Kenny Yeboah to make 2 special teams tackles a year, and we'll keep it rolling. So thank you, everyone, for listening. Hang tight. Keep your sanity. Keep ranting in the Discord. Jump over to War Room for more content. We'll talk to you soon.